Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing the hearing this afternoon. Joining me from the Board of Revision is Ms. Diane Knight and Mr. Stuart McPherson. Our assessor today is Clayton Deitchen, and our secretary is Jaswinder Kumar. We'll be hearing applications where revision of the assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queens, or I believe now King's Bench, if the matter pertains to the application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Today, we will be hearing items 1 through 8 on the docket today. And Mr. Kumar, can you please swear in the assessor and the applicants?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. Mr. Deitchen, please state your full name.
Clayton Deitchen.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Burukas, please state your full name.
Matthew Stephen Barokas.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please stand up. State your full name.
Ryan Olveros.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please say.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So the first item on the docket this afternoon is Taché Avenue. So Mr. Deitchen, if you could read the roll number onto the record and then proceed.
Roll number 0606 0108 file number 22-1308. It's on Taché Avenue.
Okay, you can proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
All right. So it's the roll year 2023, classification residential 2, taxable liability, assessed value at 167,000. It's vacant residential 2. Zoning is RMFS, residential multifamily, small. The land area is 4,360 square feet.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah, I have a recommendation for a new value at 89,000, which is $20.41 square foot, to bring in line with other properties on this parcel of land.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, are you in agreement with the recommendation?
Yeah, so Mr. Deitchen, we do appreciate the offer very much. However, just given the values that we're looking at for this property, as well as the remaining properties on docket along Darvaux, we respectfully decline the offer at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deitchen. You can proceed then.
Now going to page 3, we have our land sale comparables. They range in size from 2,820 square feet to 12,135 square feet. The data sale ranges from February 14th, 2017 to November 24th, 2020. The sale price per square foot ranges from $22.27 a square foot to $59.77 square foot. All of which are residential multifamily small zoning. Our recommendation falls within the range at 2041, near the lower end of the range. And then going to page 4, we got pictures of the subject property and the zoning of the subject property as well. Then we could go into the comparable sales pictures, just showing the size and shape of the lots. External influences such as the traffic and commercial adjacent. There's a rail line on the subject, which is across the street, which will be talked about later. And going to Transcona Boulevard, same kind of thing. It's on a medium traffic influence. Okay. The comps that we have support our recommendation, and that's our evidence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Deitchen, the subject property say that it's in very close proximity to the rail line, correct?
It's across the street and up a berm. Yes. It's on our property record as having a rail line influence.
Okay. Have either of you visited the subject site?
Gone by it, but not lately.
Okay. So you said the subject property already has a rail line influence attached to it, but I'm just reading the subject line here on, or it's the subject column on page 3. You don't have that as an influence?
Which
Oh, sorry. No, this one doesn't have the rail line influence because it's not adjacent to it. It's on the back side of the property.
Okay.
the other ones do though.
The other ones do on the docket. Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so the rail line influence, is it typically considered, does the model typically consider it as a negative or a value negative?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the comparable sales here that you have on your brief, again on page 3, they range from $22 approximately a square foot to $60 a square foot.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the question is here, you have the subject at $38.30 a square foot. The rail line seems like it would be quite a substantial influence on the property. Shouldn't it be, maybe we can consider it to be below these, the range of the comparable sales stated, like the assessed value per square foot. Shouldn't it be below the range of the assessed values of the sale prices?
Our recommendation was at 2041, so it would be lower than the range of sales.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the 3830 is based on the previous.
But yeah, that's the
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that work out to per square foot, I guess, with the recommendation that was made?
2041 square foot.
2041. Okay. Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McPherson, any questions?
I guess just one. There's a little difference in the sizes here, of course, of your comparables. Does the economy of scale come into play when you're looking at vacant lands?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Is that always, or is it dependent on the area, or?
Yeah, I mean, two pieces of land right next to each other. The bigger one is typically, all else being the same influence wise, going to sell for a lower price per square foot. So if you look at our comps here, our recommendation is at 2041. So we're below the range. Their comparable 1 and comparable 4 are similar in size. They're quite high. They're in the $50, $60 a square foot. We didn't go to that. 2, 3, and 5 are in the low 20s. We're actually underneath. I mean, there is a railway track across the street. Not for nothing, you look at the land influences of these comparables, and you can see the commercial influence, heavy traffic, external corner. That was part of the analysis in putting our valuation together. So we feel that being below, slightly below the range of comparables at 2041 really makes sense.
Okay, and I can appreciate that there's probably a limited amount of vacant lands that are zoned similar to the subject property. That's why you've chosen them in different areas of the city.
Definitely.
Would you say comparables 1 and 4 are the closest proximity?
I mean, we tried to pick them in that eastern part of the city, but I mean, 1 and 4 are to the south of it. Peguis is more closer to Transcona. So I would say that the subject property kind of like falls in between it, but closer to downtown in the North St. Boniface area. I know there's been a bunch of development there with new condos, apartments going up in that area. So it's a good area to be in.
Okay, I thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
I just have, to clarify for me, because I'm looking on a fairly small screen here. So the rail line, is that the rail line on the bottom right of your picture of the subject? Is that it? Is that the rail line running there?
Yeah.
Okay. I just trying to figure out exactly where it was. Okay, that was the only question I had. Thank you. All right, Mr. Oliveros, so you can proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the subject property roll number 06-06-0108-000. It's on Taché Avenue. So going to page 8 of my brief, and please let me know if you need me to slow down. I think there's going to be a lot of flipping between pages, and I know it's not that easy through a computer. So, so the subject property is 4,360 square feet with M2 zoning. It's part of the Qualico land assembly along Darvaux Street, east of Taché and west of St. Joseph Street on the north side of Darvaux. So, sorry, I did forget to mention that my presentation here will carry forward into the remaining properties along Darvaux, carrying forward. So really my presentation is going to be all encompassing of the remaining properties along Darvaux.
Okay, thank you.
I know, that's okay. So each of the properties have dual zoning with the exception of the subject property that we're looking at right now on Taché. However, it is again part of the same Qualico land assembly, so we do feel that it would be indirectly affected by the hindrances that the remaining properties are affected by, which I will be discussing. So again, the subject itself is M2 zoning, and the remaining properties are residential, multifamily, and industrial zoning. They're unimproved, but there are municipal services, and the surrounding zoning is a mixture of R1, R2, and industrial and park. So our argument, it hasn't changed from the previous cycles. The buildable area of these lands are reduced as they are across the street from the CNR High Line. So if you go to page 6 of my brief, you'll see the CNR High Line to the south of the subject properties there. The subject that we're looking at, it's on the top left corner here, on Taché Avenue. So the buildable area of the subject, it is hindered because of its proximity to the CNR High Line. And the typical setback requirement when a property is in very close proximity to a CNR High Line is 30 meters. And the fact that this High Line itself is elevated, that would require a further setback requirement. So since the subject lands have M2 zoning on them, this would trigger a review of the railway policy, and we can see an example of this policy being applied on page 43 of my brief. So please do let me know when you're all ready, and I'll read out the portions here that are highlighted.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Just a sec.
Okay.
Sorry, my machine decided to freeze here. Okay, there we go. Okay, go ahead. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So reading from page 43, the highlighted section. So for applications involving a rezoning and or subdivision, the Urban Planning Division requires new development adjacent to or abutting rail operations to incorporate the safety measures identified in the guidelines for new development in proximity to railway operations report, which was prepared for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Railway Association of Canada. What's unique about the subject application in relation to the guidelines is that although the land may be adjacent to the CNR mainline, the City of Winnipeg has a reversionary right over parcel F for a potential route for the Eastern Rapid Transit Corridor. This reversionary right does not permit the construction of any buildings or structures within parcel F, and if executed would mean that the subject property may no longer be adjacent to the rail line and would abut the rapid transit line. Considering the reversionary right, the proposed development is separated from the rail line by parcel F and the Darvaux right-of-way, which is 66 meters wide. In addition to these setbacks, the City of Winnipeg has requested a 3-meter construction easement associated with a potential future rapid transit corridor. In total, including the proposed building, will be set back 38 meters from the CN right-of-way, which is 27% further than the recommended 30-meter setback from the principal main line. And then in these council minutes, you can see the location of this property that was in question. It's 825 Taché, which is across the street from our subjects. Okay, and then now I'm going to be flipping back to page 12 of my brief. And again, if you can all let me know when you're ready.
Yep, we're good.
Yep, I'm good.
I'm there.
Okay. So the comparable sales, again on page 12, range in size from 29,416 square feet to 56,581 square feet. The total land size of the subjects is 40,690 square feet, just to mention that as well. And the sale prices per square foot for the comparable sales that I'm presenting is $13 a square foot to $32.72 a square foot. However, these comparables are not influenced by a rail line, and those are evidenced by the photos that I've provided starting on page 19 of my brief. So due to the obstacles that this property and the remaining properties along Darvaux are facing, or have been facing for the past 2 cycles now, we do feel that the values of the subjects should not have increased from the previous cycle. the fact that this property and the other properties on Darbo are facing the hindrance of being very close to the rail line, we do feel that is a large value negative to the subjects. And we can see here that the assessment department, again, I guess with the exception of the recommendation here, the average increase is 63.39%. 155 Darbo increased 49.79%, and the subject itself 160.94% before the recommendation was made. And so for the subject property, we're requesting that the assessed value be reduced from $167,000 back to the 2020 value of $64,000. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Oliveris, what page is your workup on?
My workup, I provided the comps on page 12.
12,
And
okay.
on page 13, we can see my requested values in blue.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions from the assessors?
Yeah, so we have some rebuttal as well. Would the panel like to hear the rebuttal first or questions for the main brief first?
Yeah, we'll hear your questions first, then we'll do our questions, and then we'll get into rebuttal if that's
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
So, page
Uh,
12.
on page 12, do you have the zoning for the comparable sales?
No, it looks like I forgot to put those in there. I can provide each of those to you though, if you wish.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so the zoning for index number 1 is residential multifamily small. Index numbers 2 and 3, residential multifamily medium, and index 4 is residential multifamily small.
Did you put any weight on the fact that number 2 and 3 are RMFM?
Sorry. Well, see, in my analysis here, what's really affecting the value in this property, I mean, I use these comparisons as a gauge, but given the hindrances of these properties, I mean, we'd really have to, I guess, consider all factors, and to put weight on the zoning itself, in this case, I mean, not too sure how I would do that, but I mean, we do feel that the subject properties are inferior to the comparables that we've chosen.
Given the age of the index number 1 and 2, wouldn't more recent sales be more applicable for this, as they're 6 years old?
They would be, however, I mean, the sales that I was seeing not as comparable to the subject, and they don't have that real line influence. But I do agree, if there were sales that are comparable to the subject, I would consider them, yes.
Do you think the market has changed in 3 years since the last assessment?
Generally speaking, yes. But when you have properties that have these obstacles to overcome, I think we should also consider that in our analysis onto whether properties such as these would even increase in value at that point.
Okay, and then just on to some of the considerations you said about the railway and the council minutes. Can we turn to page 43, please, everyone? And just let me know when you're there.
I'm there, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'm there as well.
Okay, so there's the highlighted section, and we got this yesterday, so we're trying to read it over and understand it as best we can, kind of at the 11th hour here. So looking at this paragraph, these minutes, these aren't in relation to the 5 properties on Devereux specifically we're talking about today, is it?
They are not in relation to the 5 properties on Dartmouth that we are speaking about. However, I think this provides an example of how the railway setback would be considered in a development application.
Okay, so just looking at this, it says that the way I'm reading it, it says parcel F, which is found on page 39, which is one section of the property that they're actually talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the section where they're pertaining to the setback? The 30-meter setback?
So I believe the development itself, if we look on page 39, the development is marked in the black bold line there.
Mm-hmm.
And what this is saying, I believe, is that along this area, I believe the rapid transit corridor was supposed to be going through. I believe the city filed a caveat on title for multiple parcels within this area. So they're saying if the rapid transit corridor does get approved to be constructed in this area, then that would remove the CNR highline requirement. But to my from what I've been notified of, the rapid transit corridor will not be going through this area.
Okay, and then just to be clear, it says that it's the building that will be set back 38 meters. So that would be like, the way I'm just trying to like read it, it would be like the front of the building, which is the beginning of the construction, not the property line. Is that kind of the way you interpreted it as well?
Yes, so the setback requirement, it's from the property line of the high line to, I guess if you put in the example 825 Taché, it would be 38 meters again, from the property line of the rail line itself, and then it would interject into the property, into the 825 Taché. And same thing with the subject property, so it's taking about half the size of the lots.
Okay, so I guess, I mean, that may be somewhere where we have a bit of a difference, because when I'm reading the order or the minutes here rather, they mention the transit rail line. The last sentence says the recommendation of 30-meter setback from the principal rail line. It doesn't say the property line of the railway. Is there anywhere in this yellow portion that says it's the property line specifically rather than the principal main line?
No, so so I gained this knowledge. This was about 4 years ago now. I think the last time I looked at properties within this area. To my recollection, I can't remember if it's the railway policy itself or if it's the conversations I had with other people in the industry. But from my knowledge, it's from the property line of the high line.
Okay, for the main brief, those are our questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions for Mr. Oliveros?
Just to be very clear, you're saying that this parcel F now in this thing is not going to does not apply because the rapid transit is not going through.
So it says here that parcel F, that is, I believe, where the rapid transit corridor was supposed to be constructed. But again, from my conversations with my clients, actually, we've heard that the transit corridor will not be going through this area.
Will not be going through, so this does not apply then.
So now what's going to happen is that the railway setback will be applied because the CNR High Line.
Okay. Okay,
is it-
I get you now. Okay, I get you now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McPherson?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'm assuming that you're making this presentation as the assembly. This is, I think you mentioned it was Qualico Land Assembly. And so it's all the parcels, and you're talking about 40,696 or 690 square feet. And that's the total of all the parcels we're dealing with today. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so if this is a land assembly, is there a merger in process for this parcel?
There hasn't been any plans to develop the parcels as of yet, and I just had that conversation with my client.
I see. So, and the setback, this issue, the setback, that pertains only to buildings, does it not? Like, if a portion of it is parking at the rear, that's not affected for a setback. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And finally, just your the example, I guess you've given us of that council minutes on a different property. It says that that's to be rezoned as an RMU. Does that make any difference? The fact that it's a different zoning that they're seeking versus what this property is zoned at, the subject property?
Yeah, yes, it may make a difference here because I believe RMU, you are allowed sort of commercial developments in that zoning designation as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're suggesting that the assessed value should be the same as it was last cycle, 64,000, and that's, what does that work out to per square foot? Is about $14?
About $14, yes. And just to answer about the RMU, it looks like they were actually planning on building multifamily building on here. So, but yes, it does work out to 14 for the subject property. $14.68 a square foot.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just to clarify, you just mentioned multifamily. You're talking about the piece that on page 40, the parcel land on page 43. You're saying that the properties that you're bringing before us today there is no plans at this point for anything on any of them. Is that correct?
There are no plans yet.
Okay, so the multifamily you were discussing was the other piece on Darville. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So now, Mr. Baracus, you said that you had some rebuttal in?
Yeah, I emailed yesterday, and we've been talking to the clerk as this has been going on. So if you can please send that out to you folks.
Yeah, it's in the chair folder, Madam Chair. And I'm handing out.
Sorry, is it in our items now?
Yeah, I just put that in.
You just put it there. Okay, hang on, just let us all get
And
it
it's
open then.
perfect.
Okay.
Must be sitting at the very top, A and T buttons.
Just pulling it up here, hang on. Okay,
It's
I've
a
got it.
3-page document.
Yeah, 3-page document.
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Yes, I have it as well. Mr. McPherson, do you have it?
I do have it, thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Oliveris, you've got it?
Yes.
Okay, assessors, Mr. Assessors, plural, you can proceed.
Okay, on the first page, or actually on all the pages, we measured it, I think 4 times from different areas. And they all range from 31 to 33 meters from the rail line, because that's how we interpret the paragraph saying the principal main line. And usually for these things, it's the worry about the train track and the train car falling off or something like that, rather than the property.
Yeah, not the property line.
Yeah. So yeah, from pretty much all the areas, it's over the 30-meter threshold.
That seems to fall in line with the way we're reading it. Like, we weren't able to find any specific zoning restrictions, but it says on page 43, the recommended, not required setback is 30 meters. So we measured it from the edge of the line 4 times, and we're beyond that point. And keeping in mind that this 825 Taché minutes is in regards to a property that's on the river across the street. Yes, it's pretty much the same location, but it's not specifically rather meant for these properties we're looking at today. Now, I can see how these considerations would extend to this property, but it looks like that we're beyond the recommended 30-meter setback just coming up from the line to the border of the property. So we didn't feel that was applicable. And that's our rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, do you have any questions regarding the rebuttal?
Yes, so just to be clear on the point here, that you were measuring from the actual train tracks themselves, right?
Yeah, because that's what it said. It said setback from a principal main line. Because I was looking, that's why I asked you the question in regards to if it said the edge of the property, because we couldn't find any documentation kind of at the 11th hour after getting your evidence, like yesterday. We were just trying to think, like, well, if say you have a big square rail yard property and then there's one track that goes right through the middle, are they going to measure the setback from the railway track, which is, it would seem to be the concern with debris and perhaps a car coming off, or would it be from the edge of the property itself? So the way we read it, it said from the principal line. We look at other, there's other apartments, for instance, out like down Concordia, 1340 Concordia and 525 Peguis. They're built like 16 meters from the rail line. They're actually the edge of the property. So they're close. It's not something that doesn't happen in the city. So we just didn't feel that bringing it right back down to the value it was last time was appropriate.
And sorry, which properties were though that you said were built 16 meters from the?
That would be 525 Peguis. We did a rough measurement using the same technology. And I believe it was 1340 Concordia. So they're even closer than these were.
And are those on other briefs that you've submitted today?
No, this is just something that we saw this morning when we were reviewing it. So we don't have any like photos or anything, documentation to back up what I'm saying.
So you haven't submitted those into evidence?
No, I haven't, not on paper.
Do you know if there were any berms, anything that would protect if a train were to derail? Were there any berms that would have protected the residential properties around that from?
No, I just did a quick measurement. I know there are residential properties on the other side of this railway, but that's something that's been grandfathered in, I suppose, previous to the council minutes we're looking at. But no, I don't have any knowledge about berms or anything.
Okay. So yeah, I guess since it has been submitted into evidence, we wouldn't be able to confirm that information though?
Well, I can tell you what we measured, but because it was past the submission deadline for rebuttal, I don't have pictures. But I'm giving sworn testimony right now.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. McPherson, any questions regarding the rebuttal?
I have none, thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, no, thanks.
Okay, and I have none either. Any requirement for summation on either party's part?
No, thank you.
No? Mr. Oliveris?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes this item. So the next item on the docket today is Darvaux Street, item number 2. So let's just everybody get that pulled up here. Okay, and Mr. Deitchen, when you're ready.
This is the same argument as before because it's on the same parcel of land. This is file number 221304, roll number 0606011200 on Darvaux Street. It is residential 2 classification, taxable liability, vacant residential 2 land. It has RMFS residential multifamily small and M2 manufacturing general zoning split. The land area is 8,069 square feet. We have a net rate of $20.45 to come to the value of $165,000. Then on page 3, we have the comparable sales. Same thing. For this one, I added in an M2 zoning comparable just to show there wasn't much. It's a kind of an older sale, but it still falls in line with our value. The sales range from 2027 to 5977. The dates range from September 19th, 2016 to November 24th, 2020. Like I said, comparable 1 to 5 is RMFS. Comparable 6 is M2. The sales range from 2,820 square feet to 12,135 square feet. And then if you scroll down, we got some zoning information. The same comparables. You got pictures of the subject property and the comparable sales. And that is my evidence.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the assessed value per square foot of this property is $20.45 a square foot.
Yes.
And your comparable 6 is $20.27 a square foot, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so again, we've established that the rear line is a negative influence in value.
Yes.
Yes. So again, wouldn't you agree that each of these properties, I understand that this is our opinion, that is the ability to develop the comparables is greater. Shouldn't the assessed value per square foot of the subject be below the range?
Comparable 6 is a really old sale. It was just kind of to show that we're close. It is lower than all the other RMFS sales, so it is below the range of the RMFS sales.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions for the assessors?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McPherson.
It's just an observation on your comparables. You've included comparable number 6, and I can appreciate what you're trying to do there. But would it not be more effective to show something that's this M2 zoning in the subject area or the areas of the other comparables, if you're trying to illustrate that there's not much difference? Because if they're not in the same area, then you're taking something else into consideration as well. Would you not agree?
That's fair. There was almost no sales for M2.
I can appreciate that, but I'm just saying for a comparison, you know, that actually give us some sort of content or context about it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. That was
Okay.
all I had.
Thank you. Okay, and I have no further questions. So Mr. Oliveris, you can proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, so the subject property on Darboe Street, roll number 06-06011200. Our argument is going to remain the same as it was for the previous property. So we are requesting that the assessed value for the subject that measures 8,069 square feet be reduced to Is there a mistake here? Be reduced to 119,000. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Deitchen or Mr. Brockes, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McPherson?
Clarification on that 119 that you're requesting, that's based on the previous cycle value, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And I did forget to mention here too, my apologies that I have provided the board's orders from the previous cycles. For the previous cycle, sorry, starting on page 54.
Sorry, the overall rate that's applied to this property is what? To come up
$14.75 a square foot.
14.75, and you're suggesting that it has the same influences as the last subject property that we dealt with?
That is correct. Yes, these are all influenced by the CNR Highline.
Okay. And once again, there has been no intentions of developing them in the near future, so therefore they're not considering a merger on the properties?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions for Mr. Oliveris?
You are mute, Ms.
Sorry, I do not. No.
You don't. Okay, thank you. And I do not have any further questions. So thank you. Any need for summation, gentlemen, on either side?
We'll just do it at the end of all the properties.
Okay,
read
sure.
in.
Okay, I won't ask you again. Mr. Oliveris, do you want to do the same?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So that concludes item number 2. So we'll move on to item number 3 on the docket, which is 155 Darboe Street. And again, let's just find this here. Okay, and Mr. Assessors, please proceed when you're ready.
This is file number 22-1303, roll number 06-06-011-9000. Address is 155 Darboe Street, and this is once again part of the same parcel of land. The roll year is 2023. The assessed value is $355,000. It's a vacant residential 2 land. Zoning is RMFS residential multifamily small and M2 manufacturing general. The land area is 16,145 square feet. Our net rate for this piece is $21.99 a square foot, which equals the $355,000 valuation. If you go to page 3, it's the same comparables as last time with level 6 as the M2 manufacturing comparable. It's same comparables as last time. Our comparable seems to fall in line with all of our comparables. Same argument as last time, And that is my evidence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McPherson?
Yeah, my only question was, I believe I asked if the economy of scale was coming to effect on vacant lands, and if I remember correctly, you said you thought it would apply. Is that right?
Yes, yes, and I know where you're going with this one. Perhaps up to a certain point. I mean, anyone buying this is going to be probably looking to build like an apartment on it. If the lot's too small, they can only build so many units. But I can see where your confusion comes with that. The rates are modeled. We're very similar in regards to the previous properties. And we're at the lower end of the range of the comparables. You can see comparable number 2 sold for 2307. It is a little bit older, 2017. It's a different period economically, but I feel that we're still within the range ultimately, and there's not enough to make a change.
Hey, I appreciate that, but it really wasn't my confusion.
Okay.
Okay, but I thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just a clarification. These are all model.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been no overrides in any of these.
Other than the rec.
maybe the recommendation.
Other than the rec, yeah.
Recommendation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I had then. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Oliveris, please proceed.
So the subject property, 155 Darbo Street, roll 06-06011900. My briefs all follow the same format. By the way, there are photos and maps on pages 6 and 7. This particular property, it's 16,145 square feet, and it does have the dual zoning on it. And we are requesting that the assessed value, again, the argument is the same, be reduced from 355,000 to 237,000. I've provided these numbers in my summary on page 2 of my brief for your reference as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Assessors, any questions of Mr. Oliveris?
No questions.
Okay, Mr. McPherson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions, no.
Yeah, just Mr. Oliveris, what is your 237 work out to a square foot, please?
237 a square foot works out to $14.68 a square foot.
1468. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That concludes item number 3. So we'll move on to item number 4 here, which is we don't have an address on our docket, but we have a roll number. So Mr. Dyken, if you want to read the roll number into the record, please.
Yeah, it's roll number 0606 0109 000 and file number 223199. This is again on the same parcel of land. Roll year 2023, assessed value $83,000. It's zoned the same, multifamily small. The net area is 4,046 square feet. Our net rate is $21.51 a square foot, which equals the $83,000 valuation. All the comparables are the same once again, and our comparable our subject falls below the comparable range, and that is my evidence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
I do not have any questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. McPherson.
No, thank you.
No. Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions. So Mr. Oliveris, you can proceed.
Okay, so subject property roll number 06-06010900. It's a 16,140, sorry, wrong number. It is a 4,046 square foot property. With the dual zoning on it as well, M2 and RMF. We are asking the board to reduce the assessed value from 83,000 to $60,000. That works out to $14.83 a square foot.
Okay, that's it for you. Okay, Mr. Assessors, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Mr. McPherson?
Yeah, just, I think the question was asked before, I believe the assessor asked you if it was your opinion that overall market values have changed since the last cycle. I think you said, in general, yes, but not these properties. So I'm paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm wrong. But if that is the fact, would this property still have the same negative influences now that it had before? Taking that into consideration, would you not think that it would increase with the normal market?
I mean, okay. So yes, I agree that overall the market, real estate prices generally increase. But then when you have a property with the hindrances that the subject properties do, I don't feel that the property values would move, because who's to say if someone were to come by and purchase the property, if they'd be willing to pay market value for a property that has obstacles to overcome.
Right, but you're saying that it should be the same value as it was last time. So you're agreeing that last time that value was appropriate for the parcel. Is that correct?
Yes.
But now you're saying it hasn't increased because there's encumbrances, but those encumbrances were still in effect the last time. Is that not correct?
That is correct. Yes. I think the potential investor would see the risk in purchasing a property in a property that is, in our opinion, not appreciating in value.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have no further questions, so that concludes item number 4. So item number 5 on the docket is again a roll number with no address. And Mr. Assessor, you can read it into the record when you're ready.
Roll number 0606011300, file number 221310. And this is once again on the same parcel of land. Roll year 2023, assessed value $83,000. Same zoning as before, RMFS and M2. The area is 4,039 square feet. Our net rate is $20.55 a square foot, giving you $83,000 valuation. Same comparables as before. Our subject falls at the bottom of the range of comparables, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. McPherson, any questions?
Just clarification, these are model-driven numbers, I think was mentioned
Yes.
previously. And would you happen to know how many sales were included in the analysis in order to create that model?
I would not know that, no.
Yeah, okay. I thank you. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions. So Mr. Oliveris, please proceed.
So the subject property, roll number 06-060-113,000. It is 4,039 square feet. Also with the dual zoning, multifamily and M2. We're asking the board to reduce the assessed value from $83,000 to $60,000. This works out to a rate per square foot of $14.86. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Assessors, any questions?
Questions?
No questions. Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McPherson?
Thank you. No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions, so that concludes item number 5. Item number 6 on the docket, again, we have no address, so Mr. Assessors, you can read the roll number onto the record when you're ready.
Roll number 060601100000, file number 22-1309, and this is once again on the same parcel of land, earlier 2023. Same zoning M2 and RMFS. The size is 4,031 square feet. Our net rate is $20.59 a square foot, giving you a valuation of $83,000. Same comparables as before, and once again, our subject falls at the bottom of that range. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. McPherson?
I have none. Thank you.
Okay, and I do not have any questions either, so thank you. So, Mr. Oliveris, please proceed on this property with your presentation when you're ready.
Okay, so the subject property, roll number 06-060110000. It is 4,031 square feet with RMFS and M2 zoning. We are asking the board to reduce the assessed value from $83,000 to $59,000. That works out to a rate per square foot of $14.64.
Thank you. Mr. Assessors, any questions?
Questions?
No questions. Mr. McPherson?
I have none. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions. No.
And I have no questions. So that concludes item number 6. Item number 7 on the docket is 93 Nassau Street North. So, Mr. Assessors, please proceed when you're ready.
Roll number 12032177000. File number 22-2689, and this is 93 Nassau Street North. Roll year 2023, assessed value $581,000. We already spoke with the applicant, and there will be improvements put onto this property prior to the 2023 assessment year, so it will be superseded by those adjustments. And we request that we could get confirmation of the current value.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, have you any questions regarding that?
Just to clarify that with you, Mr. Dykshin, I believe the subject property is already has been improved with the apartment building on there. So just to confirm, the supplementary assessment, as you stated in our correspondence there, it will be issued before the end of the year, correct?
Yeah, it'll be effective before 2023, yes.
Okay, those are all my
Okay.
questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McPherson, any questions regarding this?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions. So obviously, Mr. Oliveris, you don't need to present on this, then I'm just confirming?
Yes, we are just confirming.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes item number 7. So item number 8 on the agenda is 269 River Avenue. So, Mr. Assessor, you can proceed when you're ready.
Roll number 12032378000. File number 223176. Address is 269 River Avenue. roll year 2023. Classification residential 2, liability taxable. Assessed value $1,074,000. Property type is vacant residential 2. The zoning is RMFL, which is residential multifamily at large. The assessable area is 24,550 square feet. Scroll down. The net area is 24,550 square feet. Our net rate is $43.75 a square foot, giving you the $1,074,000 valuation. On page 3, we have our comparable sales. They range from 37.31 a square foot all the way up to 93.62 a square foot. The sale dates range from January 2017 to June 2019. The sizes vary. They go from 6,666 square feet all the way up to 38,861 square feet, all of which are zoned RMFL as the subject is. Scroll down to page 4. I have pictures of the subject property and the zoning of the property. And page 5 has pictures of the comparable sales. You could disregard the second picture. I accidentally put in the wrong picture. I was just trying to show how close the comparables are, but as this one is 269 River, the comparable sales 530 River and 290 River are relatively close, but these pictures are not correct. I accidentally put the wrong ones. And that is my evidence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions?
So if we flip to page 4 of your brief, and I'm looking at the first photo here. So we can see that the only way you can really enter this property is through that narrow entryway just at the front of the property off of River Avenue, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and would you agree that that's sort of that is an inefficient access and egress point?
I don't have any data on that.
So you just said that you don't have any data on that point, or?
Yeah, sorry, it froze up there for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any data on that.
Okay, so not really in terms of data. Okay, so have you visited the subject?
No, I have not.
Okay. Does the model take into account that part of this area, because of the trees laying at the rear of the property there, would it be considered a buildable area?
Yes.
It does take into account?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McPherson, any questions?
I know you said you had no data, but you know the width of that access strip?
I do not know.
But if I look at the overhead and that Mayfair Place to the east, I guess it is, that's the width of that street?
We're just gonna take a quick measure here on our GIS programming, and then we'll give you like a rough estimate. It says approximately about 20 feet,
20 foot? So,
approximately.
Yeah, it's hard to measure on this.
okay, so that's probably the width of a normal street, would you not agree? Not a major street.
Definitely
No,
not, definitely
River
not.
Avenue, but
I would say it's probably smaller than a major street.
Right.
Or smaller than a normal street, actually.
Enough for access.
Okay, and the land influences on it, Assiniboine adjacent, that would be a positive influence, is that correct?
Typically, yeah, I know the applicant brought up some buildable area concerns, but we have some rebuttal in regards to their information, so we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, what about the bus route? Is that a positive for, does it matter whether it's developed as multifamily or commercial or residential? Does the bus route come into play differently for different types of properties?
Well, I mean, for Osborne Village, I would think it would be a positive, and like the building itself, the future improvement would be set back from that bus route. So you'd have access to the bus route without the bus rumbling by the windows, because there's two buildings in front of it. So I would see that as you're getting the benefits of it without the noise.
Okay, I thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
Yeah, back to that access point. So when it's model driven, does it take into account that it has a smaller than average access point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess, that is the oddity with this, and that would be the same kind of question that I would have. Now, I know you're estimating what that width is, but, would that be, and I don't know whether you have any idea, but would that be enough for, say, emergency services and that kind of thing in terms of, the city's requirement for vehicles like that to get through?
I don't have that information.
Yeah, because it's a very odd configuration. So, okay, that's all I had. Mr. Oliveris, please proceed, and we'll get to your rebuttal after we hear Mr. Oliveris's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so the subject property at 269 River Avenue, roll number 12-0323-78000, file number 22-3176. So going to page 8 of my brief here. So the subject property, it's located on the north side of River Avenue to the west of Donald Street and is accessed through a narrow laneway off of River Avenue. We do consider this to be inefficient. We provided a photo of the subject on page 7 and maps of the subject on page 6 here. So we do consider this to sort of be a very inefficient access way. The way I was thinking about it is if someone were to develop the site, we can only imagine what would happen with the larger vehicles going in and out of the site, the chaos that would probably ensue, again, from those vehicles going in and out. And it was a great point as well, what would be the requirement for the emergency service vehicles to be going in and out of the site as well. The rear of the subject property, it does back onto the Assiniboine River. The site size is 24,550 square feet, and that's according to the assessment department's records. And it is zoned residential multifamily. So the surrounding land uses are primarily residential, and the riverbank portion of the subject site, we can see here, again, referring to page 6 of my brief, this part of the site is more than likely to be protected, and that's evidenced on the Osborne Village Neighborhood Plan. In this plan, there are policies regarding the natural areas along the riverbank. I'm not going to read this whole sentence here that's italicized, but essentially within this plan, the mature tree shade canopies within Osborne Village, they are a character defining element of the neighborhood. As well, going on to page 9 of my brief, I've provided a map of the natural areas at the location of the subject. So we see in the dark green here, that the riverbank there, the trees along there are considered natural areas. And again, I'm not going to go through this entire paragraph here, but essentially the city's ecologically significant natural land strategy and policy would also play a part in protecting these lands. And if we just go to page 21 quickly, I do just want to read out the part of the last paragraph. And please do let me know when you're all ready to go here.
I'm sorry, what page was that again, please?
Page 21.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so there are many other factors which may also be used to determine the importance of an area. While not all natural areas are considered ecologically significant natural lands, all riverbank areas proposed for development shall be strongly considered for protection as ESNL, irrespective of their natural heritage grade. Riverbank areas are extremely important for aesthetics, erosion control, water quality, aquatic and terrestrial habitat, corridors, greenways, and maintaining ecosystem health. They are therefore always considered ESNL. The multi-criteria evaluation process encompasses this and other factors. So we can see here that the rear of the subject property, again, is more than likely to be protected, which means that the buildable area of the subject would be significantly reduced. And we're estimating this to be about 25%. That works out to, after subtracting that 25%, 18,413 square feet. And now going on to the comparables that I have provided on page 13. They range in size from 5,789 to 38,861 square feet. The sale price per square foot range is $34.55 to $65.83 with an average of $45.90. Indices 1, 4, 5, and 6, they are in very close proximity to the subject property, however, are much smaller in size in comparison to the subject, but these comparables do not have the same accessibility issues as a subject property, and they do not back onto a river. I provided a map as well as there should be aerial photos here. So there's a map on page 19 and aerial photos starting on page 22 for your reference. So index number 2, it is the furthest away from the subject, but it is similar in size. It also has an identical accessibility issue as a subject property, but does not back onto a river. And I provided a photo of that comparable sale on page 22 for your reference. That one sold for a sale price per square foot of $34.55 a square foot, but this property being in the River Osborne area, my understanding is that typically these lands along River Osborne would sell at a premium. So I have kept that in mind here. And index number 3, it is also further away from the subject, but similar in size, and no accessibility issues exist, nor does this property back onto a river as well. So in conclusion, since the subject property does back onto a natural area that is not considered buildable, we feel that 25% of the 24,550 square foot site cannot be developed. And that leaves, again, 18,413 square feet of space that can be developed. So based on the comparable sales that we have identified and considering the site-specific characteristics of the subject, we have actually applied a rate of $41 per square foot, and we're applying that to the buildable area of 18,413 square feet. This results in a value of $755,000. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Assessors, any questions for Mr. Oliveros?
Yes. Have you done any independent research into the square footage of the entire site?
No, just according to your department's records.
Okay. And just to confirm, what was the percentage that you deemed unbuildable?
25%.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you.
Rebuttal.
Yeah, we'll get to the rebuttal after we've asked our questions, and then
Yep.
you can present that. Mr. McPherson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just a couple. Is this is a lot of record? Is that correct?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
I said this is a lot of record, is it not? According to the city,
Oh,
so a buildable area. It's a buildable site.
yes.
Well, would they not have taken into consideration the access and egress before considering it to be a buildable site?
Yeah, I think we have learned through questioning that they have taken that into consideration. I think the difference is between our opinions of how those would be, of how those characteristics would influence the value of the site.
Right. And am I to understand that you think that the river is a negative influence in this case?
I was contemplating that. Not that it's a negative influence really, but it would definitely decrease the buildable area, and I think that should be taken into consideration.
Is there a height restriction as to how high up they can go?
That I am unaware of.
And you're saying 25% of it's non-buildable. That's the area that's protected. So are you suggesting there's no value in that particular area?
Yes, that's what my analysis seems to indicate.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes, that's what my analysis indicates.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
Just the question again to this 25% non-buildable area. Would you not think that there has to be some value to that? Because that is a plus it could be a plus for future building on there. If they put a 20-story building on there, it's got a beautiful view.
Yeah, okay. Those are great questions, and I do thank the board for those questions. I do feel after considering it that in some sense that it would have value, considering that it does build the character of Osborne Village.
And what value would you place on that 25% then?
I didn't look into that closely, so I'm actually not too sure what value I would place on
Okay.
that area. But great point, and I do thank the board for bringing up those points.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware, the two buildings that are in front of this piece of property, are they owned by the same owner as this piece of property?
They are not, no.
They're not. Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Okay, Mr. Assessors, you have some rebuttal evidence you'd like to present?
Yes.
Okay, and Jaswinder, is that in our files now?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, just give us all a chance to get it open here.
Yep.
Okay.
Just a one-page document?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oops, I think I've got the other one.
It's at the very top, Madam Chair.
I think I opened the wrong one. Hang on. I've got it now. Yep. Do you have it, Mr. McPherson?
I do have it, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Assessors, please proceed.
Yeah, so what's viewable to the public on the website is the accessible area. The total land area for this property is 60,819 square feet. We did a quick measurement of it, and it's around 61,000. The accessible land is 24,550 square feet. So we already are accounting for the unbuildable area, as Ryan mentioned before. I think it's about 40% actually of the total land area.
Okay, Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, any questions regarding that?
No questions, and thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Mr. McPherson, any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, and I do not either. So I'm going to give both parties an opportunity to summarize, since we've been discussing similar properties all afternoon. So Mr. Assessors, do you have any summary?
No summation, thank you.
No summation? Mr. Oliveris, any summary?
Just with regards to the properties along Darvaux, just to reiterate this, we do believe that the measurement of the railway setback from the High Line is measured from the property line. We do feel that it takes up about half of the take up about half of the lot. We ask that the board take that into consideration and reduce the assessed values to our requested amounts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have heard all the items scheduled for this hearing, and so the hearing this afternoon is now adjourned, and I thank everyone for your participation. Thank you.